This morning in the scripture reading, we see that Jesus had come into the country of the Gergesenes and there encountered a man that was possessed by devils. And the devils had asked him to be allowed to go out of the man into the herd of swine that was feeding nearby, and Jesus did in fact permit that to happen. And when the devils entered into the swine, it drove them mad, and they charged headlong down into the sea and perished. And at that point, the townspeople came out to see what had happened. And it seems like they were more concerned about losing the herd of swine than they were about the man who had been freed from the control of the devils. And it begs the question, why did these Jews even have swine? Supposedly, that was something that would defile them, and they shouldn't have even had them. Turns out that there were some Grecians in the area who would sacrifice swine to their god Zeus, and it seems it's likely that some of the Jews there raised these swine to sell to them, so it was a thing about profit. They literally were sacrificing their principles, willing to defile themselves to make some money. That's basically what it came down to. But what I really want you to see out of this is the fact that they asked Jesus to depart. Jesus had cost them money, and they didn't like it. And they wanted him to leave. And as far as we can tell from the scriptures, he never came back. It's a serious thing, folks, to ask Jesus to depart from you. And yet, people have done it time and again. In Amos chapter 7, verses 11 and 12, it says this, "For thus Amos saith, Jeroboam shall die by the sword, and Israel shall surely be led away captive out of their own land. Then Amaziah said unto Amos, O thou seer, go, flee away into the land of Judah, and there eat bread, and prophesy there." In other words, Amaziah was telling Amos, go back home. We don't want to hear your doom and gloom about Israel. Go back to Judah and prophesy there. We don't want you. In other words, telling a person of God to go away from them. They were asking Amos to depart, and in so doing, they were asking God to depart. In 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 5 through 7, it says, "And said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king, to judge us like all the nations. But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people in all that they say unto thee. For they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them." So God tells Samuel that the people, in desiring a king, it wasn't really on Samuel. It was that the people had decided they didn't want God ruling over them anymore. They wanted a king, like the nations round about them. And basically they were saying, God, we want you to depart. We want a king to take care of us. You know, Larry, he likes to do a lot of personal work and does a lot of studies. And he often tells me about some of the studies he has ongoing. And some of the studies work out, some don't. And I don't think that a lot of the people realize it, but when they ask Larry to leave, or they cancel a study, or they stop answering the phone or hide when he comes to the door, they probably don't see it this way, but what they're really doing is they're asking God to depart. because they don't want it anymore. Now, thinking about what the people would ask Samuel to do, he told them in verses 11 through 15 what would happen if they put a king in place of God. There would be a lot of unintended consequences. And if you study carefully verses 11 through 15, you can see the consequences that ended up coming upon the people of Israel when they wanted God to depart and they wanted a king. See, they would look at the nation round about them and they'd see kings and they'd think, boy, it sure would be nice if we gave a king power and he could go fight our battles for us so we wouldn't have to. He could do things that we wouldn't have to take care of ourselves anymore. And so they gave power away to a king for things that they should have continued to be doing themselves and to trust in God. We know there's a price tag with that. You know, I don't like to, and I make a practice, I try not to ever mix government, political stuff and religion together. So I won't go down that rabbit hole, but let me just say this much. There are some things that government does well, like military, the post office, things like that, financial stuff. But whenever you ask government or other people to do something for you that you should be doing something for yourself, you're giving away some freedom. That's what the Israelites did, and that's what we do. You can't have someone else do something for you and at the same time retain it for yourself. It's mutually exclusive. You know, and sometimes I think here in the modern world, we're getting away from personal responsibility of taking care of ourselves, doing for ourselves the things that we should do, and expecting others to do it. We want a free lunch. Too many people want a free lunch, and I think that's a problem. So we've seen biblical examples this morning where people have asked God or Jesus to depart from them. There are also examples of people who chose to depart on their own. In Luke, the 15th chapter, verses 11 through 31, and most of you will recognize this as the parable of the prodigal son, it says the following. And he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth unto me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after, the young son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would have fain have filled his belly with the husks that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came into himself, he said, How many hired servants of my father have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against thee, against heaven and before thee, and I am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father, but when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring hither the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and be married. For this my son was dead, and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. Now his elder son was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, Thy brother is come, and thy father has killed the fatted calf, because he has received him back safe and sound. And he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and entreated him. And he answering him said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment, and yet thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this thy son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. And he said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead, and is alive again, and was lost, and is found. There are a lot of lessons that you could take from this parable, and I'm sure that many of you have heard several. But there's one thing that I would like you to see in particular. We're talking about departing from God. And in this particular case, the prodigal son, he left his father and departed from him. And there was a price tag associated with that. Oh, at first it seemed like it was going to be a lot of fun, but things went downhill fairly quickly. When you depart from God, he's not going to chase you into that faraway country, and he didn't chase the prodigal. Now, he will always be waiting for you to come back, and he'll be hoping that you come to your senses and leave that faraway place to where you've gone. But he's not going to go and try to force you to come back. God won't chase you into that faraway country if you decide to go there. You know, departing from God is always a very serious decision that a person would make. And the trouble is it's a hardening process the further you go. If you think back to Pharaoh, when Moses kept going to him, at first it said that he hardened his heart. And then another plague, he hardened his heart. Finally, toward the end, you know what it said? It said God hardened his heart. There's a point in time when we depart from God and get so stubborn. There's a point in time when he says, okay, if that's the way you want it, so be it. That's scary. When we get stubborn in our desire to depart from God, that is a serious thing that we need to be worried about. You know, people leave churches for the last time every day. There are always people deciding to depart from God, and in my experience, most of them never come back. Occasionally they do, most times they don't. I would never think about naming them here, but I can think of people that were strong Christians that I knew, that I looked up to. They don't come anymore. For one reason or another, they decided to depart from God. And I've tried hard. I've been reaching out to the person, won't come back. Think long and hard before you ever decide to depart from God. In Matthew, the 19th chapter, verses 16 through 25, it says, And behold, one came and said unto him, Good master, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep the commandments. He saith unto him, Which? Jesus said, Thou shalt do no murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. Honor thy father and mother, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The young man said unto him, All these things have I kept from my youth up. What lack I yet? Jesus said to him, If thou wilt be perfect, go and sell all that you have, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Then said Jesus unto his disciples, Verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. When his disciples heard it, they were exceedingly amazed, saying, Who then can be saved? The young man was sorrowful when he went away, but he still went away. He still decided to depart from Jesus. Jesus had told him what the issue was. He loved him. And Jesus said, there's one thing that's the big barrier between you and where you want to go. He let him know, and the young man decided to depart. In his case, he departed from Jesus because of his wealth and because of his possessions. I sometimes fear that in the church in a very prosperous America today, that there are others that are doing just that. They're departing from God and holding on to their possessions. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 24, No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. There's a choice that has to be made. People depart because of relationships sometimes. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33 says, Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. I've known more than one person who fell because they chose to have a relationship with someone that did not have the same allegiance to God. And you know, sometimes people close to you, your friends can get you to do things that your enemies never could get you to do. We have to be careful. You know, Jesus wants to come into our lives and he wants to fix things up. I have an analogy I like to use because, well, it works for me anyway. I don't like going to the dentist. Wait a second, I need to be truthful. I hate going to the dentist. I hate it. You know, and recently I had some dental work done, and my good wife will tell you I've been sort of like a moaning around the house some, because it's been bothering me off and on. It's been hurting. And I like the dentist just to do the bare minimum, to fix it so it stops hurting. But just about every dentist that I've ever went to, you know, what's that stick with the little mirror on it? I don't even know what they call that thing. But anyway, they're going like this. They're going all over the place. And I'm there, what are you looking over here for? It hurts here. But he's looking over here. I feel like yelling at him, stop that. This is what I want fixed. But see, he's looking for cavities all over the place. You know, well, that don't hurt over there. Isn't that sort of sometimes what we do with Jesus? Jesus fixed the things that cause me to hurt, that causes me to toss and turn at night. Fix the things that keep me from being comfortable as a Christian. We want you to fix that. This other stuff over here, it's not hurting me. Let that alone, Jesus. Don't be meddling over there. That's not bothering me. But see, Jesus is like the dentist. He wants to fix it all. You know, and sometimes we don't want him to. We want him to fix us, the things that cause us to toss and turn, but not the other stuff. You know, we can ask Jesus to depart from us in a lot of ways. And my prayer would be this morning that none of us would ever allow that to happen. When the Gergesenes asked Jesus to depart from them, it seems, if you study the scriptures, it seems very well that he never came back. If he did, there's no record of it in the scriptures, that's for sure. You know, if we ask Jesus to depart, he will. And it will be up to us to come back to him the good news is that he is waiting. He doesn't carry grudges. He's willing to take you back. And he's out there waiting. I think too many of us at one time or another have made the choice to depart from him. Isn't it true? We had a choice to do the right thing or the wrong thing. We chose to depart. But we can go back. What about you this morning? Have you ever departed from Jesus? Or in a way, ask him to depart from you? Like I said before, I've known people that never, ever believed would have left the church, but they did. And if you see yourself backsliding this morning, now, today is the time to act. As the Word of God tells us, today is the day of salvation. Departing from Jesus is a very serious thing. And I think now the people of the Gerasenes, if they could talk to you today, they would say, don't do that. So if you find yourself moving away from Jesus this morning, you need to do something about that. Even today, as we stand and sing, to encourage you.